Hello, hey Bav, hey Case, how's it going?
I'm very well, Gavin. How you doing?
I'm great, very good, very good.
Amazing. So we are now live. GM to all my fellow 1010s. It is I, Bav, the chief hashing, authenticating double checker with you. I brought our co-founders, our friends, our fellow 1010s, and today we're going to give it a good go. We're going to give it a 1010 show. Um, we've asked the community tons of questions, and we've picked the most popular ones, the ones the community really care about, that they're really invested in. And today we're going to spend a bit more time picking Gavin and Revelation's brains about 10 today and the future of 10 and where it all leads to. But before that, I'm going to take a bit of a I'm going to take this to a bit of a side conversation because we also had a bit of information or questions regarding final chapter. So I'm going to share my screen if I have your permission, guys, and just give a quick update before regarding that before we proceed. Okay, let me try to share my screen. Okay, do let me know when you see my screen.
Seeing it now, Bav.
Amazing. So we have released a new website, which should be launching tomorrow, I believe, through our X account. It's, as you can read, about final chapter. It basically summarizes the main 5 volumes up until now. So let's just go through it ever so quickly. Number 1, we did the Yap.market campaign. That's complete. The recipients have been paid out. Number 2, the meme wars. That's also finished. Winners will be announced, I believe, tomorrow, alongside steps regarding prizes. Proof of Bluff, still ongoing. The 4th volume, jerseys. Everyone has been going crazy about jerseys. My whole DMs is about jerseys. So finally, we've listened to the community. We're giving you what you want, guys. Tomorrow, from the main account, so 10 Protocol on X, you shall receive a form to input the details, your sizes, your addresses, etc. Don't worry, we won't leak it. It's with us. You can trust us, and we will send you your jerseys. And as you know, ongoing right now with Cookie, we have the final snapdown. So that's ongoing. That's where everything leads to. That's the end goal. That's the final chapter. So yeah, hopefully that summarizes where we are today. So I'm going to turn my sharing off now and let's go back to it. But yeah, as I mentioned, Gavin in Revelation, we asked the community, what do they care about right now? And we have a few questions. Let's jump into it. Okay, number 1. This is a pretty common question, but
This feels like. Do you want to be a millionaire, Bav? You feel
it
like
does. It does.
you feel like a game show.
Do you or do you not? Or rather, deal or no deal, Gavin?
Weakest link.
There you go. All right. Question number 1. How can TEN's privacy first design open up new Web3 use cases that other blockchains can't really do? Over to whoever wants to take it first.
Let me go first on this one. And I mean, this was the reason 10 even became a thing, right? Opening up new use cases on Web3. Fundamentally, we realize, if you've got a blockchain environment and we want to be able to replicate anything that's happening around Web2 or anything that happens in the real world, then there has to be a degree of privacy. So by getting data access control nailed with 10 and doing that in a decentralized way, fundamentally it gives you hidden information. And so when you consider, okay, I've got hidden information, I've got smart contracts that I can have a mix of hidden information and non-hidden information, it opens up such a massive world of opportunities. Things like on-chain poker, which we could talk about in a bit more detail, dark pools, avoiding liquidation of thresholds. And something that was quite prevalent for us early on in our design phase was around protection from MEV. I mean, this was a big thing for us. I think we really got excited about this probably within the first 6 months of coming up with the 10 design, is that we can create a more fair blockchain experience. Because if you're trading, you don't want to be front run, sandwich traded, ripped off. So 10 was the opportunity to be able to provide an MEV resistant version of trading on chain. Case.
Yeah, I think a good analogy is, well, there's loads of terms for this, right? People call it data access controls in the Web2 space. It's also known as programmable privacy, programmable cryptography. But ultimately, it's about keeping secrets, right? In the Web2 world, Facebook will keep secrets for you, right? All your data, all your photos. Amazon will keep secrets for you, your order history. And it's ultimately the same thing. It's about keeping secrets, right? And what 10 allows smart contracts to do is keep secrets. And that opens up everything. Ultimately, you can build anything that you can build today in Web 2, but in a decentralized way. That's what 10 gives you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If I can add to that, I feel like we have a very unique perception. The crypto community today, everyone on CT. And the truth of the matter is, when you're a quote unquote normie and you're using all these Web2, applications, you don't even think about it. It's the privacy element is built into the walls. But it's only when you lose that aspect that you genuinely appreciate. And if you want to create this incredibly fertile land where everyone's really comfortable and has the ability to really benefit from the underlying blockchain, we need to have certain parameters ticked off. And privacy is an absolute must. And we're seeing that now, to be honest. We saw that, a few months ago with CZ when he mentioned dark pools, when that happened on, there was speculation of, forced liquidation with James Wynn on the perp side. And even beyond that, even beyond just the retail traders, if you want to have the institutions, though, this is the big money, right? If you want to have them on there, then 45% of US equity daily volumes, they go through dark pools. So it would be, somewhat ignorant to even believe that institutions one day will adopt DeFi or just even a blockchain very generally if their day-to-day building blocks are just not there, and you need privacy for them to be there.
Bav, guess what the very first requirement was when we built Corda? When we sat down with the banks, day one, what do you think that first requirement was?
Privacy. Let's go with privacy. There we go.
Yep.
Damn. I've read the cheat sheet. Amazing. All
literally requirement number one.
There we go.
Can we keep this private?
There we go. And I know there's been a lot of utter around how does one attain the privacy, around what technology genuinely brings it. We'll come on to that in a few moments. But the second question, what are the main challenges you face with privacy and cross-chain features? Also, maybe professionally or more personally, because you guys are obviously invested ever so into this from, given your background at Corda. But what's your vision for 10 over the next year? Case, maybe over to you first.
Okay, I'll do the challenges. The first challenge is, I think when you sort of start building something like this, you have two paths, right? One is an easy path where you're like, okay, so we'll build like a chain that has secrets or smart transparency or programmable crypto, whatever you want to call it, right? And we'll kind of build this thing up and we'll force everyone to adopt to what we've built, right? We'll create wallets that align perfectly with what we've built. We'll build tech that aligns perfectly with what we've built. We'll build our own virtual machine or whatever it is. And we'll expect developers to sort of just rush at us and come and use our stuff, or end users use our wallets, etc. It's a lot more difficult if you approach this backwards, starting from, well, what does everyone use today? Well, most developers use Solidity and the EVM. Most end users are using the popular wallets, right? Like the MetaMasks and the Phantoms of the world. It's a lot more difficult when you work backwards from that, because those wallets, for example, like MetaMask, that does not support encrypted transactions by default, right? The amount of work, this is why it's taken so long, this is why it's taken years, the amount of work, the sort of people we've had to have on the team, the cryptographers, the engineers, to retrofit an encrypted network into existing popular tools is something no other blockchain has done. There's no other project out there that's done this, that sets it up. It's just us, and it's taken us years to get here. And that was, the biggest challenge technically.
Yeah. That was a lot of heavy lifting, actually, wasn't it, over the last few years? Which is quite a good segue onto what the next 12 months have in store for us. So getting mainnet shipped, obviously super key for us in the very near future. We're very proud, I think, of what we've built. It's taken some time. As Case says, we've got an awesome stellar team and they've done an awesome job. Just absolutely smashing it out of the park, quite frankly, with what they've created. So transitioning from testnet to a live decentralized network, that's key for us in the next year. And then obviously with that comes onboarding a whole variety of dApps. So whilst we've found a good level of anticipation and excitement around things like poker, because that's very tangible and it's known and it's already a well-established concept, there's a whole raft of new dApps that we're already making a start with. So things like deep fake detection, things like private DAOs, dark pools. The AI piece has been particularly interesting. I think that was an awesome opportunity to really show how 10 can be relevant in many different formats. And I think when you've got this like juggernaut, AI juggernaut coming at you, you're like, well, how the hell are we going to deal with this? And we found that we can really hit a sweet spot in terms of autonomous AI agents, and we should talk about that a bit more on this call. So we're going to have these dApps coming on board. We'll start getting enterprise pilots underway, so private healthcare data, private lending platforms. I mean, they are long sales cycles, right? And we've already started the foundations with those guys. I mean, this potentially some of these are multi-year. So we've already made a start. We're talking to the right people. And we're very excited about bringing these early enterprise use cases on board, these early institutions on board. And then getting the basics right. So expanding that documentation, having a good build a grant program, having a bug bounty, hackathons, competitions, continuing to reward the community and continuing to give something back to the community, because many of you have been sticking around with us for a long time. And we're all incredibly excited about how we can keep you engaged, keep you excited about 10, having more to do with 10, using the dApps on 10. If I were to be bold and I fast forward 36 months, then the ideal outcome for us is 10 is the underlying privacy layer for Ethereum. You won't even know we're there. Quite frankly, you're using dApps, you've got these awesome privacy features, and under the hood, you've got 10 just doing its job.
I think it's like there's so much to talk about that. It didn't even cross my mind to sort of talk about the AI agent stuff we did, which is, I think to date, we're still only one of two teams that have built AI agents that are provably autonomous. They're running inside trusted execution environments. They generate their own keys. They control their own Twitter account. They control anything else without any human intervention. It's all provable, right? And that was huge.
Tip of the cap to Flashbots for being the other awesome team that managed to pull that off too.
Yep, Andrew Miller, incredible guy.
Shout out Dr. Miller. The next question. It's funny because when you think of a startup, you at the very I guess day zero, you think about the founders, the co-founders, and their backgrounds. Case, you have a background as a quant at UBS and Credit Suisse. Before this, you were with Gavin and Tudor, our CTO, building R3 Corda. Gavin, you are ICAP, R3 Corda. In that case, rest is history, right? So it's fair to say you guys come from a different kind of mindset, shall we say, to what Web3 is today. So the question here is, what are some of the key lessons you've learned from building in Web3 that traditional founders often overlook? And then as a follow-up, because Web3 is all about mass adoption, how do you guys think about user onboarding evolving as we progress into the next phase of blockchain adoption?
I guess the trick here is to answer this question about talking about things that founders overlook rather than all the stuff that we're aware of. What do we overlook as founders? I think you can't afford to be complacent with the quality of your team. I think it's very easy to get hung up on your outward facing persona and how you're presenting yourself to the community and how people are getting excited and how you're attracting VCs and all that good stuff. But if you're not turning around fairly frequently and looking inside at your team and, are you guys okay? Are you comfortable with what we're doing? Are we being transparent enough about our strategy? I'm sure we've all worked in companies where you're like, what the hell is going on here? I'm being told one thing by her and one thing by him. That's very confusing for me. So I think utmost transparency, as a founder, utmost transparency to your team, because we've all got to make our own personal decisions, right? Everyone has a life. I think that doesn't get talked about enough, actually, that's something institutional founders could overlook. Sometimes, obviously, the business comes mostly first, but sometimes you do have to think about your team, which is almost an extension of your family. So, yeah, that's one thing for me.
I think just the speed at which everything moves, it's the most unforgiving space in the world, and that's both a good and bad thing. You launch a product, and if you get just one thing wrong, someone will take your source code and fix whatever that issue is, and boom, your liquidity is gone from your project to theirs. It kind of reminds me of Sushi Swap and how all that happened, or Blur, and just just adding the right incentives. And it's genuinely the most, in many ways, it's the most hyper capitalistic forum in the world. There's nothing like this playground that has ever existed. It's ruthless, and you have to move fast, and you have to be aggressive, and you have to have, like Gavin said, the right people. And behind you, the right community, right? I don't think Web 2 in some ways is based on community. I feel like I'm a community member with Google, because I'm a Google local guide and I leave reviews on Google Maps and stuff. But that's nothing compared to being a community member in Web 3, particularly around sort of the incentives, the rewards, and the feeling that everyone is in this together. It's an incredible journey, and I think anyone coming from Web 2, where they've built an app and launched it on the App Store, and sat back with a bit of marketing, jumping into Web 3, is going to be shocked at the journey you have to go on. It's an incredible place to be, which is why we're all here, right? But yeah, it can be draining as well. So you've got to really be willing to put the grind in to make this a success, more than any other industry out there.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially your point around the fact that the goalposts move pretty much every day. Something works on Monday, and by Tuesday, and I feel the good thing here is your feedback is fairly instant, because you found PMF if by Tuesday there's 10 more projects copying you with the open source element, right? We saw it with Blast, native yield, amazing, went from 0 to a few billion TVL pretty quickly. Next thing you know, someone launches native yield as a service. Same thing we're seeing with InfoFi today, with the likes of obviously Cookie, Snaps, etc. But yeah, it's a good thing. It means people care, and at the core of it, the USP, the competitive moat you do have is your community, because they're the ones that stick with you, regardless of what happens around you. So that's a great point, guys. The next one is actually quite close to my heart, because obviously I work on the BD side, and every time I actually introduce 10.
Well, is Bav frozen? Is he frozen for
you? Yeah, he is frozen. I don't think we talked about the question. Did Bav also ask us a question around onboarding and what that looks like?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So can you guys hear me now?
We hear you now.
Yes.
I think that's what he was getting to before.
There you go. The irony of talking about tech when your tech's not working is.
Okay, Bav's gone again. All right, I'm going to talk about the next phase of blockchain adoption and user onboarding, because I think that's interesting. And I saw that was one of the questions that was posted. I'm going to take a contrarian view here, because everyone kind of talks about how we need to onboard the next billion users, how we need to ensure that the UX is perfect, so that more and more people will join, so that my mum can join. But I think the contrarian view is that actually the UX is perfect as it is, because Web3 ultimately won't be used by humans, it will be used by AI. It's a machine first interface, and smart contract interfaces are the absolute best possible interface to an AI agent. It doesn't break, it doesn't go down, it doesn't change. It's there and it's composable, and it allows AI to do incredibly powerful things. And I think we're going to be really surprised to see where that adoption comes from. I think, like, you know, I mean, I saw some crazy stats the other day about how website usage is just plummeting right now because everyone's just going straight to Claude or to ChatGPT. And that's only going to increase, right? And I think, like, you know, everyone will just be driving everything through AI agents. AI agents will control every aspect of our life, and all of our finances and various other things that Web3 takes over. It will all be operated on by AI. So I think, like, it's not about, we focus too much on user onboarding, but it's really, I think we should be thinking more about AI onboarding. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, so you're right in many ways. I remember, what was it, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years. So I was at a conference, and you know, you go to a conference and then you end up, there's like a general zeitgeist feeling, message, narrative that everybody is, you know, you turn up, no one knows what it's going to be, and by the time you left, everybody's talking about the same thing. So making the user experience more straightforward became this massive thing at this particular conference, with everybody going away saying, yeah, we need to simplify the user experience, it needs to be all abstracted, or all the complexity needs to be abstracted away, it needs to be super simple. But in case you're right, we're going to leapfrog all of that nonsense, and you're going to set your AI agent off on its merry way to solve the challenge which you've set it at that particular point in time, and it's going to report to you exactly what you wanted because it's already worked its way across all these smart contracts. So yeah, that's interesting feature. Bav, we see you again.
You can now see me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm clear. You see my sunglasses? All right, good to go. Apologies for that, guys. All right, the next question, very close to my heart. Every time I speak to a builder and I introduce TEN from the element of privacy, they ask me and say, oh, are you like the other privacy solutions that force everything to be opaque? Or is it an element to which you can actually pick what's public and private? I think this is incredibly important because, especially from the idea of poker, in one given game, you have your cards, your hand rather, which has to be private, and then you have the cards on the table, which have to be public. So my question to, I guess, Case here is, what do you think about TEN being able to provide the ability to selectively make certain variables private versus public? And what's that DApp that you truly believe as a result is now possible that will stress test the network to its max, capability?
So what's the benefit of being able to have both private and public parts in a single smart contract?
Exactly. So what's the benefit? What's the uniqueness of that which TEN provides versus other privacy solutions? And from your opinion, or from your mindset, what's that one DApp that you think as a result is now possible that will truly stress test the testnet?
Yeah. Okay. So I think, like, a big part of building on Web3 is having everything on chain, right? I think there's been previous attempts in the past to kind of move stuff off chain, which is ultimately giving in. It's saying, look, this isn't something we can do. Tech isn't good enough, or we're not good enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift this a little bit over here, and it's going to be computed off chain. And you're not truly decentralized. You're not truly embodying Web3 if you're actually just using it to post back proofs or whatever, right? We've got to do this properly, which is, it's a decentralized architecture. We've got to keep everything on chain, right? And if you're going to place everything on chain, then you need to be able to say, okay, here's a smart contract. It runs entirely on chain. How do I ensure that this bit over here is private and this bit over here is public? So anyone that's kind of like written code before will recognize this as like a private variable versus a public variable, right? If you have a private variable in your code, then other parts of your application can't access it. Or if you have a private thread on your computer, then other threads can't access it, right? It's how a computer works. And I think like if you sort of like zoom out to Ethereum's goal of being the supercomputer of the world, and I think that will probably happen. At the very least, it will be the world settlement layer. But let's imagine it becomes the world's computer. Computers have to have programs that have private variables. Computers have to have private threads, and that's what 10 does. So it gives you this ability to write in the same way you would in Web 2, right? You can now say, here's some part of my code. I want this inaccessible to the outside world unless I permission them to view it. That's just, that's how code's written. And, we're bringing that back with 10. And that's that at the heart of it is, is what 10 does. In terms of stress testing the network, that's a really good question. It's a difficult one. And I guess like one thing to point to is like we previously talked a lot about gaming. We've talked about one I always sort of point to is I love this game called Civilization. I don't know if you've played it. Have you played it, Bav? Yeah. Okay. Hey, Civilization.
Yeah, I got showed it by Elon Musk, I think, on one podcast or something.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So it's the coolest game, man. It's like, you start off as this single settler, and your objective is to make your civilization rise up and dominate the world, right? You either dominate it by spreading your religion everywhere, you own all the economics of the world, your philosophies, or you just destroy everyone, right? You destroy every other nation, or you're in the space race, and there's all these cool things. And that game is awesome as it is. If that were on chain, right? And you brought all the other Web3 primitives like DeFi and then lending pools and everything else, then that would be a great replica of the real world, because now we're not just playing for fun, but we're actually depositing real tokens with real value. We're using real money to construct factories. We're using real money to create military units. VCs are pumping money into you so that you can dominate and overtake another city. So like A16Z's battling Paradigm or whatever, but via pumping money into this thing. And that game would be phenomenal. It would take over the world. And I'd love to see that sort of game built on something like 10, because obviously, you need privacy, right? You need to be able to, if you've ever played the game, you start off with this fog of war type thing. You can only see your portion of the map. You can't see the portion of the map over there. You can't see how many units your opponent controls, right? So you need to have privacy. But if that sort of app was deployed on 10, I think that would really stress test us in a really cool way. I think but ultimately I think the way 10 set up at the moment, the number of transactions it can handle, it would take something as big as that to really sort of push what we're capable of doing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna nod towards the AI agent stuff that we just talked about, because I agree with you that game would be awesome, but there's still human actors within that scenario. So imagine AI agents. You log on to 10. You've joined the 10 network. You've been served up your own AI agent courtesy of 10, and then thousands of these AI agents start interacting with each other, and they start collaborating in these private spaces on the 10 network to be able to come up with the most optimal trading strategy, or they come up with the best birthday gift for your mum. It could be vast ends of the spectrum. But the point is, when you've got thousands of AI agents all interacting at microsecond speeds, man, that is going to seriously stress test the network. The reason I say testnet is because remember that time we had 3.4 million interactions in that single day. That broke a few things, but we're through that now. We worked out what broke and we fixed it. But that was quite fun. Yeah.
Do you remember at R3, Gavin, where one of the stress tests we did on Corda was to check it could handle the daily volume of the US equity market? I think that would be a good test for 10, see if we could handle that.
Amazing stuff. The next question is very interesting, and it follows this mindset of, I guess, this tribal mentality, because 10, the reason the technology we leverage is TEs to achieve privacy. And there's this somewhat, let's call it a privacy war without being overly dramatic, guys. We have the likes of some people using ZK, others using FHE, some using MPC. And I think I'm biased, evidently. But I think in the last sort of year or so, only two have really kind of got the mind share. One is ZK because it's just raised so much money in the past. And one is TEs because it works. It's pragmatic. It's the only one that I believe works today in a scalable fashion. So I think my question for both of you guys is, number one, who do you think has won the privacy war so far? ZK, 10, i.e. TEs, or ZK? And between TEs and ZK, who do you believe builders should choose and why?
Yeah, there's enough war in the world at the moment, Bav, without adding another one. So I would I would say there's not. This doesn't need to be a war, and I don't think it would be a war. There isn't a winner here. I think it's horses for courses, really. So TEEs and ZK serve very different purposes. If you want to have a complex, if you want to run complex scenarios, if you want to run a complete complex business logic in a private space, then you'd use TEEs. That's what they're designed for, and that's what banks have been using them for over 10 years. It's in their mobile phones. It's running all our apps. You know, it works. Whereas ZK proofs have a purpose. You know, they're fantastic for verifying computations, or if they're revealing a very snipped outcome without exposing inputs, they're great for that. So really, there's going to be a happy medium with TEEs and ZKs working in harmony. Okay, so we've been looking at this already at 10. So yeah, how does it look for you?
Yeah, I think they solve different problems ultimately. I think people like to compare them like they're the same thing, but they're not. They do very different things, like you were saying, Gavin. And I think, like, you know, so I guess a few things. So TEs are the most battle-hardened privacy technology out there. They're in use by most of the world's institutions. It's like when I worked at UBS, we used to handle all our servers, all our data in-house. And then the cloud came along, and we couldn't move to the cloud because there was no way we could sort of like trust our data being sort of run and owned by Microsoft and Google and so forth. And it's only once they introduced confidential compute with TEEs that we were able to move our data up into the cloud. So it really enabled everything, right? And it's being trusted by institutions across the world, governments. It's like you said, it's on all our mobile devices. It's the tech that powers everything. And I think what's interesting is something I noticed the other day is that every TEE project has delivered. I've yet to see a TEE project rug in any way. There's something about being pragmatic in your technology choice. There's something about, you know, it says something about the founders and the team, which is they've chosen a very pragmatic choice, which for a long time didn't have hype, yet they chose it because it worked. And it leads to sort of like this integrity. Like, you know, if you think about the projects out there, you know, Pharla, Automata, Unichain, Flashbots, Oasis Secret, these guys have been building for years and continue to build and continue to innovate. Yeah, there's definitely something there.
Amazing. And we have a great question as well. I believe one of the community members did a bit more research into TEs. Of course, in our case, it relies on Intel SGX. But one question they had was, how does that not make it susceptible to sidechain attacks?
So it's not susceptible to sidechain attacks, I think is the actual answer. Tudor, our CTO, thinks long and hard about this stuff, and you know, he was given the remit to prove to us that Intel SGX was the right choice, purely from a security perspective. And while side channel vulnerabilities have been identified in the past, and obviously being a user of Intel SGX on what could be a platform moving multi-million transactions around, we obviously stay very vigilant about that. But good news is that many known attacks they've been mitigated over time. Intel SGX is a relatively mature hardware technology. We only support SGX on modern Xeon processors, so running the latest versions of the firmware. And one other thing, I guess, which is crucial, is that all the 10 nodes only ever run within a cloud environment. So you wouldn't be able to, in mainnet, you wouldn't be able to run a server under your desk, for example, because physical access to the hardware is one of the threat vectors, attack vectors that we need to remove, and we have done that. And we would, if any nodes are joining mainnet, we would be able to prove that it's a cloud-based machine. So you remove that element straight away. I mean, no system's going to be 100% immune to side channel attacks, but I think we're making a pragmatic choice around the right hardware choices that are available now. But I know we've also got designs that would kick in if there is any kind of attack.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, there's a reason why Intel SGX has been attacked in the past, and it's because it's widely in use. You know, hackers are incentivized to attack technologies that are widely in use versus obscure things where, you know, the win for them is very low. So it's just the fact that it's everywhere that it ends up being attacked in these ways. But yeah, but ultimately that just leads to being more battle hardened, right? Because with every attack, with every hack, Emin from Avalanche actually talks about this a lot, because their Rainbow Bridge is secured by SGX as well, which is what happens is Intel comes out, you know, a few weeks later, releases, like, you know, a patch or a fix, and that exploit, that hole is now gone, and Intel SGX is now safer and better, and that just keeps happening. And that's ultimately how you battle harden any sort of crypto tech or any sort of tech in general, right? This is why the banks are happy to use it, because they say they can see, well, you know, there's this huge corporation behind it which is willing to put huge amounts of money to battle harden it and ensure it gets fixed on time every time, and that's powerful.
TLDR, it's the best solution so far, and it works, and that's why we're using it.
Yes, it's a good point. I'm sorry, Bav, to talk over you, but I mean, it's a good point. When you've got the world's biggest banks using your technology, you know, as a technology provider, you're not going to sit back and say, oh, you know what, we'll just let this one slide. You're going to be very reactive, right? Because that's your reputation on the line. Sorry, Bav, carry on, mate.
That was the amazing addition. I appreciate the information there. I've done myself, Gavin. Don't worry. You just can't see it on my face with my sunglasses. But the next question, this is my favorite question, because I've had so many people approach me and say, "What can I do beyond poker?" And I think a sort of side channel, if you pardon the pun there. Why even poker or iGaming in the first place? I'm going to pose a question for the listeners. In 2024, what was the total amount of revenue accumulated by crypto native iGaming? I'll give you 10 seconds to guess. Put your guesses in the comments below. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. The answer is 84 billion. So imagine for a second, 10 can even get 1% of that. We've got over 800 million. So that's why I guess the poker element makes sense. But as we spoke about the banks, we spoke about AI. There's a bit touching about RWA also. But Gavin and Case, what do you see for 10 beyond poker? Perhaps it's private DeFi, perhaps it's AI, RWA, maybe stable coins, who knows? What do you guys think?
So you take a deep breath there, Gavin, like you're about to unleash some knowledge. Okay, right. So before I talk about that, I'll just talk a bit very briefly about why poker. Like you teed it up really well, Bav, which is the opportunity, 84 billion, absolutely enormous. I think like another good one to point to is Aviator. It's another iGame, and don't know if anyone's played it, but this game it's a Crash game, right? It has 42 million monthly active users. It had 12 billion or 14 billion wagered in December alone. It does 350,000 bets every minute. So, that would exhaust the block space on most blockchains. So, winning one of these games is enormous. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is online poker is broken, right? I knew a guy back when I was in London, and the issue with online poker is collusion and botting, right? And this guy, he ran a company that took advantage of that, right? He had like a trading floor equivalent at this he had a trading floor equivalent of a huge number of people, and they would all sort of like collude and have statistical models and play poker. So anyone sort of like any sort of normal person joining a poker table was going to get destroyed. So first let that be a warning to anyone that's still playing online poker. It's rigged against you, and it's like this cat and mouse thing, and it's the platforms are constantly losing. So the reason we built this version of poker is we adopted the bots. We said, okay, this game's botted. So what if we put in smart bots? What if we put in AI agents, provably autonomous AI agents, and let them play the game? Let's let people come together and stake and have fun and build a community around that. And that's kind of why we built House of Ten. In some ways it reinvents this 200-year-old game. Okay, so that's why we built poker. But to the point, what it did was it demonstrated our tech's ability to support complex contracts running fully on chain, right? And it demonstrated how AI agents can go beyond pumping coins to verifiable autonomous strategic interaction with smart contracts. And that was why we kind of built poker, and that's why that was a showcase, and that's why it made sense. And like Bav said, enormous opportunity, but that's not what we're just about. There's so much that Ten is about. Beyond, like we've discussed this whole session, beyond iGaming, there's a whole world that can be disrupted, right? From institutional use cases, institutional DeFi, to traditional gaming, to prediction markets, to Web2 applications in general, moving to a decentralized backbone. That's, there's just so much opportunity out there. But I think what makes sense for any sort of platform is to first demonstrate what you can do. Like if you think back to Nintendo Entertainment System, right? Really old school, but one of the first popular game on that was Super Mario. And who built Super Mario? It was Nintendo, right? They built it for their own platform to showcase what it could do. Microsoft, their most popular software forever was Microsoft Office, built on Microsoft Windows. So they kind of dog fooded. This is the technical term, dog fooding, right? Which is where you sort of test and build on your own tech to discover the sharp edges. So this is kind of like our lighthouse dApp to show the world this is what you can build. It's completely on chain. It uses AI. It's cool, and people love it. But there's a whole world beyond that. What do you think, Gavin?
Yeah, I get excited about something pretty straightforward because it resonates with my past a little bit. So I could get excited about supply chain and bringing efficiency to global trading markets, getting rid of those paper trails. I could get excited about AI agents running analyses across part of their health data, so big pharma can have more effective drug trials. But what I get excited about is something that I worked on whilst I was at a broker. And the reason I get excited about it is because I have a very enduring memory of one particular trader, the head trader, kicking a hole in the wall because the test we ran had a bug, and he went a bit nuts because he wanted to see this shipped the next day. But we knew his reaction already showed us that we had built something that was going to change trading forever. And for this particular desk, it did, and that was dark pool trading. And we brought on board this new interface. It was a very good UX. This particular broking firm had really nailed the concept of having a good UX after years and years and years of really crappy looking applications for traders. And this ended up being the biggest revenue earner for that particular company. So there's a lot of opportunities in dark pool trading, and I think that's going to be something that becomes way more prevalent over the coming years.
I definitely agree, and I feel like at this point, both the crypto users and the devs are waiting for that one big use case that really just showcases the value of privacy. I feel like today, a lot of the mindshare, or rather maybe the last sort of year or so, a lot of the mindshare has been built around transparency alone or scalability. I mean, we've had 100,000 TPS. I'm waiting for 1 million TPS at this point, 10 million, and so on. I wish every time a project announced a new TPS, I got an airdrop or something, or I got some sort of money, because I'll be a far richer man. So the next question here is, how far can programmable privacy really take us in a world obsessed with transparency? But I'm going to add an extra bit here as well: transparency and TPS, or scalability.
So in terms of scalability, I mean, for a layer 2, that's like table stakes now. You have to be capable of handling the kind of throughput that all the other tier 1 L2s are doing. And the way 10's inspired by the similar optimistic roll-up approach used by the likes of Optimism, but obviously we add that encrypted component. And some people ask us, well, what is the overhead by introducing encryption in terms of speed and scalability, TPS throughput? It's pretty negligible. When we ran the test, we found out it was 8%, but 8% of milliseconds is neither here nor there. So we're comfortable that we've nailed it from a speed and a scalability perspective. What were you driving at with the transparency piece, Bev?
I was saying, in a world where everyone's obsessed with transparency, how do you envisage programmable privacy to take us to the sort of next generation of Web3?
So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to take the opposite side of this and say I don't think the world is obsessed with transparency, particularly the Web3 world. What it's obsessed with is verifiability, not transparency. And transparency, like being able to see everything on everything, was more a requirement for early blockchains, right? The only way you could prove that things were fair and there was no hidden corruption was if you could see everything. But things have moved on, whether it's TEEs or ZK or FHE, this new technology enables you to have the same integrity, the same verifiability. So what you think is happening really is happening, right? Without having to see everything. So like with TEEs, for example, there's this functionality known as attestation, which is where a smart contract or any sort of application is deployed within a TEE. You can run a function which gives you this proof back that says, hey, the application that you think is running, that source code that you've just shown me, that's exactly what's running inside this trusted impenetrable area. Exactly as you see it outside, that's what's running inside. And you can 100% trust that as long as you hit the right conditions or whatever is happening happens, then that code's going to run in a completely verifiable way, right? And that's kind of like the big jump up, because we don't need to have a transparent ledger anymore. We don't have to have everything out in the open. We don't have to have everything transparent. We can have selective disclosure along with these proofs. And that massively opens up the design space, because, if you're a developer today, the first sort of thing you have to get your head around is, well, what can I actually build in the space where I have to assume everything is out in the open? This is why people are constantly talking about, well, what's the next big vertical? What's the next big use case that we can build? But if we kind of accepted this jump from transparency to verifiability using our new tech, then it'd be obvious that there's a million different use cases that we could be building right here, right now, today. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like this obsession with transparency. It needs to kind of shift to an obsession with verifiability and adoption of these new technologies that make it happen.
Love that. Love that. Now we're on to our final question, similar to the final chapter. If TEs are trusted by design, how does 10 envisage handling a future where trust in hardware itself is broken? And can the network adapt without breaking privacy guarantees?
Yes. Next.
Easy. On to Case. Case, your turn. Case, we need more than one word and you're good.
I'm being facetious. Go on, Case.
Okay. I think that's a really profound question. And we do think about, if you look at the white paper, there is a lot of contingency in there as to what happens if hardware is broken. So the first thing I'd say is look at the white paper and you'll see that in the worst case scenario, let's say hardware is completely broken, completely destroyed, no integrity, the network falls back to being a normal proof of stake network, right? It still continues to operate. All funds are SAFU, like nothing gets lost, nothing gets broken in that way. At most, you end up losing this privacy, but that's like in the absolute worst case example. So how do we ensure that hardware itself is not broken? Well, the first thing you do is you don't rely on one hardware vendor. So for phase one, it's obviously Intel SGX. But phase two, we introduce AMD, Nitro, and so on and so forth. And as you start to introduce more and more of these hardware solutions, the problem then goes from, okay, so what if Intel SGX is broken, to, okay, all of these have to be broken, and they all have to be broken within the same time span at max that it takes any single one of them to patch and fix. So you're going to have to, let's say there's 5 different hardware solutions that we employ in 10. A hacker would have to break all 5, within the space of a few days to have any chance of breaking the network. And if there's no funds at stake, which there aren't, the most you're doing is breaking privacy, then that's a huge ask, right? And it becomes like infinitesimally small in terms of the opportunity or the ability to kind of do that across the board. And then you kind of have to take into account what Gavin was talking about earlier with the proof of cloud, which is, if you're running inside a cloud environment, that it's not enough that you just break the hardware. You've got to break the hardware. You've got to break into Google secure locations and Microsoft secure locations and Alibaba's and everyone else's, right? And be there at the right time to kind of execute this exploit. And you can quickly see how the threat surface is reduced to sort of to approaching zero at that point, right? So yeah, it's really just, long story short, it's about defense in depth, right? It's like Gavin was saying earlier, no tech is 100% hacker proof, but what you do is you lay down the right contingency plans, you have defense in depth, you leverage the defense of these huge companies like Google and Microsoft, and and that makes it incredibly difficult to do. And Gavin, what about future plans? Perhaps moving away from trusted execution environments and adopting FHE. Is that something we're thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. You teed that up quite nicely, Case. So yeah, well, I think we'd be remiss if we weren't looking at other encryption technologies. And you're right to point out FHE is probably the most exciting one for us. Obviously, we're heads down at the moment getting ready for mainnet, so we haven't given that huge amount of airtime beyond a few cursory research pieces and some conversations with some people in the FHE space. But yeah, 100%. We're not wedded to Intel SGX. When there's an alternative and FHE potentially, then we'll go down that path. It will take some research development on our side, obviously, and we're looking forward to being able to do that in the future. But we've got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna turn the tables because I feel like you've absolutely peppered us with your deal no deal questions.
Sorry, call me the 10 bully, not the 10 Chad.
So obviously we've talked a lot about use cases. the best use case, the most ambitious use case is probably not going to come from us. It's probably going to come from our community. There's a lot of bright sparks out there. You guys are far more innovative than we are, I'm sure, and you're going to come up with some amazing ideas. So, Bav, what can people be doing now? How can they bring their DApp ideas to 10? How are we helping them?
Absolutely, yeah. As you mentioned, Gavin, historically, the infra sort of gives the fertile land, and then someone comes across and says, "Oh, I'm going to plant this," and that becomes the future. That's what happened in Web 2 with the FANG companies, and that's what's happening in Web 3 today. We've got a couple of main initiatives. Number one, we have the 0 to 10 incubation program, which should actually launch with the first cohort next month. The reason we have an incubation versus starting with a generic grants program is very particular. Myself and Liam, who works alongside me on the BD side, we spent over a year speaking to builders to truly understand their pain point. And it all came down to grants alone are very generic and they don't do much to actually guarantee any success. Maybe every now and again, they'll retweet and like a post, but that's like level 1 support. So now we're working with tons of builders. In the first year, about 60 builders we budgeted for. And the idea here is take them through a 12-week cohort, which begins with the likes of the tech, the architecture, the development aspect. But beyond that, stuff that is incredibly important as we build the community, stuff like founder presence, messaging, go-to-market, etc. So that's incubation. That's going to, and the idea here is obviously to give them the financial incentives and support, which of course is incredibly important, but to actually do something where we have true satisfaction that we've done what we can as the underlying chain. Because as 10, we work for the community, which includes the builders. So having that good conscience, knowing we've done exactly everything, we've given it, part in the palm. We've done a 10-10 job in making sure these builders are successful, and it truly does help leverage privacy and TEs to bring on the next level towards mass adoption. Number 2, in the sort of coming month or so, we're going to launch a growth engine similar to our grants program. This is more for the generalized builders who are more multi-chain right now, but still want to have, I guess, a unique value prop. I mean, we already spoke about the fact that there are so many L2s today, all of which are sort of optimizing for fast and cheap, etc. But no one's really kind of doubling down on fast, cheap plus private. And this is for the builders that truly who are already on, 3 or 4 chains, for example, but they want to have 10 as their home for this really unique value proposition. It could be something in gaming. It could be a DEX. It could be that you're on 3 or 4 chains and you want to have an option whereby your users can now have a private DEX and therefore not be exposed to bad MEV. Or it could be a lending pool, or a borrowing lending protocol where forced liquidation is a big issue. And now you just want to have with one click, it's all EVM. It's it's MetaMask wallet, very similar user experience. With one click, you can now solve that problem. So we want to help existing dApps already who have this, core problem at a user level, friction, whatever you want to call it, leverage privacy and onboard certain features that truly will make them successful, their users happy, and actually sort of, paint the path or pave the way for the future adoption of the sort of Web 2 users, shall we say. Does that answer your question, Gavin? Hopefully.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yes, exciting. It's an exciting future for all of us, not only for us to build the tech, but also seeing what it's going to bring. So yeah, those incubation programs, bang on. Yeah, nice.
Amazing. We've got a few more moments before I close this and talk more about final chapter for those who might have missed it at the start. Gavin, okay, so you've been with I would call 10 your baby. You were here from day 0. Do you think there's something we've missed here that maybe community members didn't quite touch upon, but you think is absolutely paramount or critical to know about?
Paramount or critical to know about? I think that probably you'd be surprised how straightforward it is to use 10. It's not rocket science. There's a lot of tooling out there to help people build. Any tooling that you've been using for Ethereum, you can use the same stuff with 10. So if you're a builder, go ahead and deploy. You could even if you've got a DApp you've built some time ago and deploy it to Ethereum, just deploy it onto 10 testnet and it will work straight out of the box. You don't need to change anything. And then you can start learning about the privacy piece as well. So for all those builders out there, do that. I think for all the users out there, go and try stuff out. Go to gateway.10.xyz. You'll see three games there you can use: Battleships, House of 10, 10 Zen. Just have a go, try them out, see what you think. Provide some feedback. They're pretty slick. We got a shit hot team building that stuff. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what people think of it. So when we hit mainnet, we're ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe doesn't sort of come across, I think because everyone's so busy on the team, particularly over the past few months, is genuinely how much we do think about community and how much we care about the community. Community is the core operating system for Web3, and particularly for what we're building. You can't have ambitions of building a new layer of the internet. One way you're trying to introduce things like privacy and sovereignty, and that shift can't come from code alone. It has to come from people. And it's genuinely something, we do sprint planning every week, and, a lot of our decisions, we do try and put ourselves in the shoes of the community and think, how's this going to impact them? Because we want to end up building something that everyone's proud of, that everyone can use, and everyone can be, proud to say, they were here from day one or month one or year two or whatever it is, or whenever it is you joined. We think you guys are the builders, the dreamers, the critics as well. And this space is totally flooded with protocols, chasing speculation and TVL and hype and so on and so forth. But that's not us. We're here to build a platform that earns long-term trust. And we know that starts with treating the community as a partner, and not a marketing channel. So, apologies if that doesn't come across all the time, but genuinely, it's at the heart of everything we're trying to do, and we will get this right. And 10 protocol won't just be our protocol, but it'll be everyone's protocol, and that way we'll scale to the ambitions we all collectively hold.
10 to that. So I think as final thoughts, let me share my screen once again for those that might have missed us right at the start. I'm just going to share with us, with the community. You can see my screen, guys?
Not right now, Bev. No.
Give me a second. Let's try one more time. Okay, what about now?
Nope.
Give it a set. I'm sharing. Give it 5 seconds, or 4, or 3. There we go. What about now? All right, amazing. So, for those who missed us at the start, we will be launching this website tomorrow. It's the final chapter website, which summarizes all the volumes up until now. For those who took part in Volume 1, the app.market, you've been given your rewards. For number 2, Meme Wars, that's over the 10 main account on X, 10 protocol. We're getting in touch regarding prizes today or tomorrow. Proof of Bluff is still ongoing. Number 4, to be honest, I think the wording's somewhat wrong, because in my sort of honest opinion, everyone in the 10 community is a 10-10. But regardless of those that proved it, we have listened to you. We have picked you, and again, today or tomorrow, you shall be receiving a form for you to input your jersey sizes, your addresses, so we'll ship that over to you. And right now, the main focus is to the final snapdown, which is, if you haven't already seen it, it's right at the top. It's a pinned tweet on the X account. Again, 10 protocol. And that leads to the moment. Everything leads to this moment, guys. And I think as final thoughts going forward, I'll repeat myself again, for builders, the next phase is incubation. It's going to give you a chance to truly work, get that white glove treatment, hand in hand, working truly with the 10 team, working with the likes of in my opinion, maybe I'm biased, the best Web3 marketer, Rosie, or the Rosium. You might see some of our articles. I think we have the best team in Web3 from a tech point of view. The likes to work with our CTO Tudor, or Ziga, or Matt, or Will, or Stefan, or Krish, and the list goes on. The list goes on, guys. But that's the next goal. I think for now, I'm going to bid you a farewell. I'm going to give you a satisfactory 10-10. Absolute pleasure to have you guys with us. I think someone just messaged me saying we beat Solana on the AMA number, or in terms of viewers. So yeah, guys, you're part of history. So pat yourself on the back. And for now, I'll bid you farewell. Thank you again. We'll do this again on an ongoing basis. Any questions, just feel free to ping me or DM me, Gavin or Case or anyone else on the on X. And yeah, like I said, 10, we're about the community. We're nothing without the community. And I think that shouldn't be forgotten. So yeah, G10 and 10-10 for now, guys.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Bye-bye. 10-10.